So, Jesse, I'm actually a little bit confused. What's the difference between like ABAC, ReBAC, RBAC? Like, let's say, for example, I want to build like a clone of GitHub. Um, what would RBAC look like?
So RBAC stands for role-based access control, and it's sort of, other than like just pure application global permissions, is the most like common and like most basic form of like authorization, and that's just for GitHub or a clone of GitHub. That would be the roles that the users have on objects like repositories and organizations. So logic like a admin, which is a role that a user could have on an organization, can read, can delete any repository that the organization owns, would be role-based access control. ReBAC and ABAC are typically like finer-grained forms of authorization that usually end up getting either added later or are like you fulfill more specific, finer-grained control use cases.
Yeah, I feel like when I'm first starting out, RBAC is like what makes the most sense to me. But do I have to choose right away, like which of these three I'm going to use?
You don't. So RBAC, whether you like, even if you don't really think too hard about your authorization model, RBAC is kind of a thing that like naturally arises from implementing authorization in a very like tightly coupled with application code kind of way. ReBAC, which stands for relationship-based access control, and ABAC, which stands for attribute-based access control, are sort of just like different ways of describing how you can make pure, a user has a specific role on a resource, and that is the only thing that determines what they can and cannot do. ReBAC and ABAC are just like ways of being more fine-grained about it. So with ReBAC, what I said earlier about inheriting a role from the organization onto the repositories the organization owns, the relationship between the organizations and the repositories is a relationship, and that would make that kind of a relationship-based access control. Whereas attribute-based access control would be something like having an attribute on repositories that say that they're public or private. So like private repositories are only viewable by members of the organization, but anybody can view a public repository, would be attribute-based access control. And you don't really need to pick one of these things if you are, as long as you are able to express relationships between resources and attributes that resources have, which you can kind of do with a lot of like different like data and authorization models. You can have both role and resource and attribute-based authorization.